Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, folks. Tennessee QB, there is no front runner. Okay. Also, Bama has gone full Butch Jones. These are two stories that just have to be covered. And I'm also going to cover the huge blowback that I got from my video yesterday. Oh, man. Talking about Connor Stallions, South Carolina, Michigan, all that kind of stuff, the sign stealing, TCU. It was brutal. But I'll save that to the end because that gets rough. But anyway, let's talk about this first thing, that Tennessee has no QB front runner. And before I start into that, that sounds like tremendous coach speak, but let's see what the story really says. QB battle is intense as three-way race has no front runner. Okay, so let me see if I got this straight. We got a guy that's been playing football for 5 years. He's starting the last 2 at Appalachian State. Of course, went to UCLA. We know that whole thing. We got Jake Merklinger, who's been at Tennessee for 1 year and hadn't played any serious minutes. And then we got a brand new freshman who's 18 years old and weighs 195 pounds and 6'6". I'm going to go ahead and guess there's a front runner just based on watching football for 50 years and knowing how coaches like to speak. But let's get into some more detail here. It says this isn't just a two-man battle. It's a three-way competition, all sparked by Nico's decision to leave. He gets into where Nico's dad was all tore up with Pete Nakos. He called him bitch Nakos from On 3. That didn't go over so well. It didn't age well either. Now here's Brent Hubbs. Now Brent is a very good journalist over at VolQuest. He says, I think that's going to be a healthy competition, but I think it's going to be pretty intense in that QB room. I think Merklinger, he got a taste and thought of being the number 1 quarterback when Nico left. That week or two, he was QB1. I don't think he wants to let it go. Said then George went from I'm not going to play to wait a minute, I'm in the competition. And then Joey comes in, of course, with all his experience, but not at the Power 4 level. I'm going to go ahead out on a limb and just say they're going to go with the 5th-year guy who's started the last 2 seasons and played a ton of ball in Joey Aguilar. And I've watched his highlights. He's a quality quarterback. Whether it translates to the Power 4 level, we'll see. You know, you still got to throw the ball to the same spots whether you're playing at Appalachian State or at Ohio State. But the difference is the speed. Can you handle the speed of the defenses and the confusion they throw at you? Every game that Joey was in, especially, well, obviously against any Power 4, it was David versus Goliath. So he was playing from behind the entire time and was getting very little protection. They were roughing him up pretty good, and he's a big dude. So I think he can handle a lot of that, and he can run some. Now, he's not as fast as a Hendon Hooker, but he's got decent speed, and he knows how to run, and he doesn't care to run, which is important. Now, Jake Merklinger, because he's not experienced, I highly doubt you're going to start him against Syracuse day 1. That just wouldn't make a lot of sense. If anything was to happen that would make me believe that they wouldn't start Joey, maybe they would play 2 quarterbacks at the same time, you know, where one guy does a series, another guy does a series, but I don't think that's going to happen against Syracuse. You might see that in the next game if Joey doesn't play great in the Syracuse game. As far as George McIntyre, unless he's some phenom, 6'6", 195 guy that can run like the wind, which I've seen him, he's fleet-footed, but not, look, you do not want to put a true freshman into a situation like what Tennessee's facing this year. That's not, look, he didn't even play Nico. And Nico was the number 1 rated quarterback at the time when he came in, $8 million man. So if you're not going to start Nico, I highly doubt you're going to start George McIntyre, who was a 4-star, with the same build. So I think this is just a lot of coach talk. And hey, Josh Heupel is good at that. You know, Josh almost never speaks out of turn. He always stays in his lane as far as what to say. Very little controversy when he speaks. And that's okay. That's not great for a content creator on YouTube, but as a fan, I like that. Now, speaking of content creation, Butch Jones. Holy crap. That guy, if I'd have had a YouTube channel during Butch Jones, I'd have never had a problem making a show. It would have just been every day what Butch Jones said or one of his Butchisms.
You have to not lose the game before you can ever win the game.
Well, Alabama has gone full Butch, and it has not gone unnoticed. on Alabama's official website, well, actually their X account, they put out this little video, and it says brick by brick. Well, I can't play the music part. I'll show you just a little bit of it. It just shows them working out in the summer and all that kind of stuff. And up here it says brick by brick, and they've even got a brick right beside it. So needless to say, the comments underneath from people are exactly what you'd expect. Of course, you've got this one, How the Mighty Have Fallen. So here's one that says, did you really? Here's another. This is a great one here. This one says more like stack by stack. A lot of you Tennessee folks know Sullen Surf. He said, just here for the comments. Here's one that says they're going to tell us they got 5-star hearts. Got to be a Champions of Life in here somewhere. Oh, there it is, Champions of Life. There he is doing brick by brick with Life cereal. Now here's a really good one. It says, I brought chairs for everyone who came here to read the comments. That's good. Well, there was Butch. That's right. Butch worked for Alabama for a little while. He was a $35,000 a year consultant. Of course, he was getting paid by UT when we let him go. Here's a lady that said, Butch Jones really rubbed off on y'all. Here's somebody that went to a little bit of trouble, made a little Champions of Life belt. Now, as you know, Alabama had kind of an off year last year, went 9-3. The worst thing was they got beat by Vanderbilt. That hurt. Now, if it makes Alabama feel any better, so did Auburn. For some reason, well, we know why, Diego Pavia. He's the Alabama state champ. And I've said this before, if anybody would have told me that Vanderbilt was going to win both games against 2 Alabama teams in the SEC, I'd have said there's no chance. I'd have taken any odds.
Oh, it's in the billions. It cannot happen, would not happen.
It can't happen, but it did. Diego put on his Superman cape. He'd better wear it this year because he's been running that jaw about how he's going to run Tennessee and all this crap.
Vanderbilt's going to run Tennessee after this year.
Believe me, Diego, everybody sees you coming this time. You're not going to sneak up on anybody. Anyway, I just thought it was fun that that Alabama's gone Butch Jones, and I'm going to tell you something about Alabama. They brought in Ryan Grubb, Frick and Frack are back together, or as I like to call them, shake and bake.
Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened. Shake and bake.
Yeah, shake and bake's back together. That's not good, and they've been recruiting like crazy, but that's, God, Alabama. They are so loaded with talent. It's crazy. And we've managed to beat them 2 out of the last 3 years. That's Josh Heupel. Heupel's won 30 games in the last 3 years, and he's beaten teams that he had less talent than multiple times. Bama being one of them. I mean, they got more 5-stars you can shake a stick at Bama. We have a handful. But now we need to talk about the video that I did yesterday that, oh, jeez, did it cause some problems. Woo! And that was this video right here where Connor Stalions talking about how he's furious with Sonny. He knew almost every signal of TCU's and all this crap. Well, of course, I covered that, and that did not go over well with the Michigan fans. It didn't go over well with one Carolina Jackpot. He's all tore up about it, and so on and so forth. On social media, this thing just, man, it caused nothing but anarchy. And the Michigan fans came out in full force. One guy said, beating Tennessee is a milestone. Tennessee is dog water. That's not very nice. Talks about how I'm a Cope king, just like the Buckeyes. Lots of dummy hill jacks down there. Here's a guy that said, again, you are so far behind Sports Talk, Jay. I feel dumber for listening to you. Go Dogs. P.S. Your puns are terrible. You're aging yourself badly. So here I am bringing to light this travesty that happened up in Michigan for 2.5 years with the sign stealing and all that crap. And of course, Michigan fans come running. They can't wait to hammer my videos as soon as they come out. And then, of course, if you go on X to check out Connor Stalions and all that kind of stuff. Now, this wasn't a negative thing here. Here's a person, Intrinsic. They've clipped my video where we were talking about that show yesterday. Now, Connor, of course, got butthurt because he doesn't want to be questioned or be... Yeah, so he clipped my video and put that out there on X, which got the Michigan fans all tore up again. Which actually, the guy that does that's actually a good editor. He did a good job with it. So anyway, speaking of Jackpot, he did an entire video because he did not like my video at all.
Here. I've told you and told you and told you, South Carolina didn't have to cheat to beat Tennessee in 2022.
You sure about that?
Your defense was terrible. It was terrible, and it got exposed that night. Tim Banks was upset at the defense. The defense was upset at the offense. What was the other Banks' name? Jeremy Banks was getting into it with Hendon Hooker. We dumped sand on our field to slow down the playing surface so Jalen Hyatt wouldn't be as effective. I heard that one. What were some of the other ones? Let air out of the footballs, maybe. Connor Stallions was getting Tennessee out of the way because they didn't want to play them. Dude, I hate to tell you, weren't nobody scared to play Tennessee in 2022? That fat hee-haw son of a bitch you got over there on the down sidelines.
Damn it, Bobby, this just ain't right. You're a good son. You deserve better than this.
You get it all, and I understand. What you need to learn how to do, sir, is the things that you should have learned how to do back when you were a Division I athlete. Number one, win with grace. Number two, lose with grace. I was on the golf team. They was a Division I athlete. That's akin to me saying that I was a 7-Eleven franchise owner when in reality I sold Slurpees out of the back of my little red radio flyer wagon on the corner. You think this is all a myth, or do you think that this guy is just jealous of the Gamecocks? You think he's just butthurt and he just don't know how to lose, don't you? I think that's what it is too.
Oh yeah, he's not happy about it, making fun of me being a golfer over at UT and all that kind of stuff because, golf's an easy sport. Oh boy. And of course, I've gone over my mountain of evidence, of circumstantial evidence that's literally would fill a dump truck about Connor bragging about how he reached out to teams, a person with direct knowledge saying that he may very well have reached out to a team that could block 2 playoff-bound teams, the fact that Shane Beamer has a history, and the fact that Connor had actually scouted Tennessee, and he'd also scouted Clemson as well. Just a few weeks before the Vols game against South Carolina, here you can see Stallions also bought tickets for Georgia, Bama, and Clemson. The connection between the Michigan coaching staff and the South Carolina coaching staff. Their defensive coordinator had worked for Jim Harbaugh. Football Scoop reported in 2023 that Stallions may have shared information with another program in an effort to disrupt a top contender's path. Shane Beamer was fined for doing something somewhat similar, accepting information from a rogue Wake Forest assistant coach about plays. Not only does Beamer have a history of accepting information about other programs, but he says he bragged about sharing information with other teams just a couple of weeks before playing Tennessee. Says when we play opponents that we don't play again, you usually try and connect with these coaches, said Beamer. See what you had on us and what we had on you. Non-conference teams, things like that. We have done that often. We dove into a self-scout during the off week, etc., blah, blah, blah. So they reach out to non-conference teams that they don't play again or don't have on their schedule. How about that? And Connor Stallions bragged about how he liked to reach out to teams that could knock other teams out of the way so Michigan would have an easy path to the playoff. How about that? And those wristbands, Holly Rowe said that was the first time they'd worn them all year. But here's the thing that's weird about the wristbands. Very weird. You wore them in a game you scored 9 straight touchdowns, and the following year, with the same quarterback, same head coach, you didn't use them at Neyland where it's super loud, and you got your butt kicked. That's the part that's just so odd.
Yeah, weird.
I mean, if you're out, no matter what it is, whether you're a golfer or a pitcher, football player or whatever, if you do something that leads to the best game of your life, where you scored 9 straight touchdowns, something you've never done against another SEC team ever in the history of South Carolina football, wouldn't you do it again? Wouldn't you use the same setup? Wouldn't you wear the wristbands? But maybe those wristbands were of no value to you in the next game. I mean, why wouldn't you? That just makes no sense. Maybe Tennessee was on to you. Maybe they changed their signs, and it was of no value to put them on the wristband.
Allegedly.
And I don't know that Shane was involved or not, but that's weird that he was bragging about that. Isn't that weird? Both he and Connor bragging about how they like to connect with other teams. Connor loved to share signals and signs. I mean, like I said, he was on Bussin' Boys talking all about it. He loved to knock teams out of the way. Now, one thing that he mentioned is I need to just let it go, let all these things go. Well, here's the problem with that. If you let this kind of nonsense go, it just repeats itself over and over and over, and people continue to do things they shouldn't do. Like, for example, Lane Kiffin and his fake injuries. For 5 years, he was doing that crap, and nobody would do anything about it. So about 2 years ago, I started covering it, and I covered every time he did it. I would do a video, and I would show people this is what's going on, and I would flip out about it, and I would get exercised about it, and nothing would happen. Well, the last couple of times I covered it, I started calling out Greg Sankey individually. Are you going to let this keep going on indefinitely? Lane Kiffin gets to have 14 timeouts and everybody else gets 3? I mean, you saw the Kentucky game last year. He did it at least, in my opinion, a dozen times. And somehow it was a miracle that Kentucky won that game. It's the only good game they won all year. And they had their momentum stopped every time they got a splash play or a good first down. Boom. One of the Ole Miss defensive players would go down hurt. Every single time. Gives Ole Miss a timeout, kills the momentum for Kentucky, but somehow, through divine intervention, I guess, Kentucky managed to scrape out a victory. And I was just sitting there watching this, going, something's got to happen. So I made it a pilgrimage of mine to put a stop to it. And again, I called out Greg Sankey, and lo and behold, after a couple of my videos went viral, thanks to you folks out there, guess what? Greg Sankey stepped in and said, no more of this crap. We're going to hit you with big fines, $100,000, $250,000. We're going to suspend you. No more of this crap. And guess what? 99% of it went away. And the NCAA came out with a rule in the offseason all about it. So that's why I don't stop. Because if you don't stop, it won't stop. And something's got to happen on this sign stealing so it never happens again. And I'm going to continue to cover it. And I'm not going to let my team get screwed over again like we did in 2022 from our playoff run. Number 1 offense in the country. We're killing it. We've lost 1 game. We've beaten Alabama, Florida, beat LSU at LSU. And then suddenly a team that had scored 1 touchdown in the last 2 previous games against Missouri and Florida scored 16 points combined. And all of a sudden you score 9 straight touchdowns. Look, when you've got the defensive play calls, that's even more important, according to Connor Stallions. He said that's way more valuable than having the offense's play signs. Makes sense. And then here's the other weird part. How did South Carolina, after beating 2 playoff-bound teams, both teams that were, I believe, 9-1 or 10-1, and had been sweeping through their season, they knocked both of them off. And then suddenly they go 2-7 afterwards. 2-7. Next 9 games. Same quarterback, same coach. Makes no sense. And those are just, observations that anybody can make. The other stuff is all the underpinnings, the wristbands, the person with direct knowledge, the bragging from Connor Stallions, the bragging by Shane Beamer. Could he be that dumb? Surely he's not that dumb. Surely it was an analyst and he just kind of looked the other way or just didn't even know on some level or, plausible deniability. He can't be that stupid to risk a $7 million a year job. Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, these are the things that I discuss on YouTube, and I'm going to continue to do so. I don't let stuff go. And look, somebody's got to stand up for what's right.
When dealing with powerful criminal elements, one can never be too well prepared.
That's right. Batman knows. I let it go when I feel like it. Today's not that day. So anyway, I did like the dog, though. I got to admit. He wants me to come on the show and debate him, which, crap. Be happy to debate anybody over this. This is pretty easy. And I wish Big Vol Daddy was still alive. Love to go on his show and do that. What do you folks think? You tell me in the comments section. Should I debate Jackpot over this issue? Y'all let me know. I'll consider it. I feel pretty firm about my ground on this. I'm not terribly concerned about it. I wish they had, what was it, the other guy? There was another Carolina guy, Rooster, that wanted to debate me. And I was going to do that on Big Vol Daddy's channel, But Big Vol Daddy, he got really ill towards the end, and before he passed away. I miss Big Vol Daddy. He used to come on my show, and we'd talk football, and he was a Greenville boy, like me. Small town of Greenville, Tennessee. Anyway, makes me sad thinking about him. He was a big-time Vol guy, and of course, he was the oldest, he was the longest-running Vol YouTuber going, really. He'd been doing it for like 13, 14 years. He always wanted to be a radio broadcaster. But I'll think about it. You folks let me know in the comment section what you think. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, boom, boom, boom. Hit that button right there. It won't cost you a dime. Help you get my videos. And right over here's the most recent video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.
I'm just curious. I saw you shuffling your checks with your right hand. Can you do that with both hands?
No.
Can't do it with both hands?
No, sir.